Hi guys, my name is Visible Stripes, and today we are going to be doing a deep dive on the original series of The Walking Dead by AMC. If you like my video or want to see more content, then feel free to subscribe, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. Alright, so The Walking Dead. This is like I said, a deep dive into the original series by me. I put together the slide, I did the research, I spent a while on this, so let's see what everything says. So we're gonna start very obviously with season 1. We have the pilot and essentially episodes 1 through 6. It's also the shortest season, so yeah, these are a lot of our main characters who we will be talking about in just a moment, getting to know people. Let's move on. So, season 1, we are on day 1 through 64. So the show's first season, like I said, is only 6 episodes, and it takes place over the span of a few days. So in episode 1, Morgan told Rick that water resources had been gone for about a month. We know that the world was still normal when Rick got shot and went into a coma. And we saw that Shane came to visit him and tried to even rescue him after the outbreak. It seems that things went awry just weeks after Rick's accident, so we're looking at around 2 months or 60 days since the outbreak. That's enough time for the loss of our normal life things to completely fade. Now, Rick spends a day with Morgan, finds his family the next day, and spends another random day fooling around with genuinely fake gangsters in downtown Atlanta at a retirement home. Clarifying, when I say fake gangsters, I mean that quite literally, because they were acting like they were trying to portray themselves in that way. However, they were actually people that worked at a nursing home slash retirement home. And it was a really sweet scene, but we are pretty positive that none of them survived, unfortunately. So, meanwhile, all of this is going on. Dr. Jenner recorded a video and pinpointed that they were on day 63 of the virus going global. So we are going to be using that to set our entire The Walking Dead timeline, much like how The Last of Us sets theirs with Outbreak Day. And finally, on day 64, the CDC blew up because Jenner decided he didn't want to live anymore. Which is valid because it's the apocalypse, not everyone can handle that. But that is essentially what happens in season 1. So just some key points. Rick wakes up from a coma and meets Glenn, Merle, and T-Dog in Georgia, among other people. The group return to the survivors' camp, where Rick reunites with his wife Lori and son Carl. Walkers attack the camp and kill 2 survivors, Amy and Carol's husband Ed. The gang head back to the CDC in the hope of a cure, but are told there isn't one. A total of 63 days has passed since the start of the apocalypse, and so far the deaths in season 1 are Amy, who was killed by a walker, Ed, who was killed by a walker, and Jackie, who dies by suicide in the CDC explosion. Moving on to season 2. This is a very heart-wrenching season. I don't know if I would say it's like the most emotional, but compared to season 1, it is literally like a barn fire. It's very intense. So many emotions are running high. I'll talk about it a little bit more, but essentially this season's timeline, it's a little bit looser. We're around day 65, as we know, to about day 88. It opens with Rick telling Morgan, who is the man he was with when he woke up from he like went back to his house after his coma, and then he was looking around and there was a man and a son. So it opens with Rick telling Morgan over a little walkie-talkie about the CDC event, which he said happened 2 days prior. So that puts us at about day 66. Then the rest of the season is basically the group at a man named Herschel's farm, because while traveling, they got caught in a small herd, and Sophia, the youngest little girl, runs away into the woods and gets lost. Later in the season, Daryl admits that they've been looking for Sophia for a few weeks, and it would have taken that long for Carl to heal, as well as he did after being literally shot, like, in the chest. Herschel's daughter, Beth, unfortunately tries to kill herself and becomes very, very suicidal, and Maggie decides to do things with Glenn. We also find out that Lori is pregnant, and she tries to essentially abort her baby by attempting to overdose on Plan B, which is a abortion pill, which unfortunately really helps our timeline in the next season of The Walking Dead, because even in a zombie-riddled world, a pregnancy still takes 9 freaking months. So eventually it's found out that Sophia's animated corpse has been in the barn on the farm the entire time with like 30 plus other zombies. They've been looking for this little girl in the woods every single day, and she was right there. They just couldn't see her. The farm gets attacked by a herd after Shane goes genuinely insane and has all of these different very severe mental health changes. And Rick essentially decides that he has to kill him in order to not die, even though it was like it's complicated. All right, personal opinions here. So then the farm is now on fire, and the group scrambles to leave, and they all kind of go in different ways, and they all are kind of with different people, and they need to reunite. So the key points, there's a lot of them. Carol's daughter, Sophia, goes missing after running off into the woods. Carl is accidentally shot by a wandering hunter, Otis, and the boy is operated on by the local doctor, Herschel, on his farm, which also, Herschel is not a doctor, he is a vet. Shane leaves Otis for dead. Glenn and Herschel's eldest daughter, Maggie, start a relationship. Lori is revealed to be pregnant. Glenn finds out the barn on Herschel's farm is filled with walkers, who Herschel believes to still be people. Sophie is found. She's a walker, and Rick is forced to kill her. A gang attack Herschel, Rick, and Shane. They capture one, a boy named Randall, and take him back to the farm, where they literally torture him. Dale is killed by a stray walker, just like randomly, because he's just dead now. Shane murders Randall, but lies about it, saying instead that he escaped. Rick kills Shane after the two clash. Carl finishes the job with a headshot on an undead Shane, which is, fun fact, Carl's first walker kill that we at least see on camera. Walkers invade the farm. Rick tells the group the CDC scientist's words that everyone will turn into a walker once they die. The group escapes the farm, though Andrea gets separated from the group and is found by the katana-wielding Michonne. And our deaths are Otis, who's killed by a walker, Sophia, who's killed by walkers off-screen, then shot by Rick, Dale, killed by a walker, Randall, killed by Shane, and Shane, killed by Rick. I would also like, I don't know if any of you can remember this, but I do remember that Herschel was not a people doctor, and that he was, like, a large animal doctor. Like, he would work on, like, cows and horses and stuff like that. Does anyone else, do you guys remember? I remember that. I think that's true. If not, let me know in the comments. So season 3, right? More explosions, because explosions are great in an apocalypse. And as you can see, there's a lot that happens. So let's jump into it. So season 3 of The Walking Dead, as you can see, there's been a massive time skip. It starts day 88 and ends around day 499. So season 3 kicks off 8 months after season 2 ends, with Rick and the survivors taking back a prison from the walkers to use as a new home. Lori, meanwhile, is heavily pregnant with her second child, which, again, like I said earlier, helps our timeline. During the battle for the prison, Herschel is bitten on the leg and has it amputated to avoid turning. Even though they had no clue if it would work, they just kind of did it. And it worked out. So, the remaining prisoners are, ironically, held captive by the group in a different wing of the prison. Andrea and Michonne are taken in by Merle, who is Daryl's older brother, who is the worst person ever, who now aligns with the community of Woodbury and their leader, the governor, which is our first big bad. Back at the prison, walkers are lured in by alarms and all hell breaks loose. T-Dog is killed trying to save Carol, while Lori gives birth to a daughter named Judith, and Carl is forced to mercifully kill his own mother, which is his first human kill as well. Michonne leaves Woodbury and, after Merle captures Glenn and Maggie, takes some much-needed supplies to a depleted prison. After recuperating, everyone heads over to Woodbury to take back Glenn and Maggie, and Michonne stabs the governor in the eye. The second half of the season sees Woodbury eventually liberated from the governor's control, but not without casualties. Merle is killed thanks to the governor, as is Andrea, who secretly worked against the governor. The remaining main Woodbury residents, siblings Sasha and Tyrese, are invited into the prison community. But wait, how does this get us to day 499? Well, there's a time jump of around 6 months between the end of Season 3 and Season 4's debut to show how the prison begins to thrive, as much as you can. So, we're going to count that into this season, even though it takes place off-screen. So our key points is the group set up base in the prison. Herschel has his leg amputated after a walker bite. Andrea and Michonne go to live in Woodbury, a community ruled by the governor. T-Dog dies while trying to save my brain said Carl, but there's an O in there. Carol. Lori gives birth to a daughter and dies, unfortunately. Glenn and Maggie are captured by the governor. Merle is killed thanks to the governor's actions. Andrea dies after turning on the governor. Woodbury is overrun by walkers. Sasha and Tyrese, who used to live in Woodbury, join the main group. The deaths are T-Dog, killed by walkers, Lori, killed by Carl after childbirth blood loss, Merle, killed by walkers, and Andrea, killed by Milton, the governor's right-hand man. Season 4. This season, it could be one of my favorite seasons. There are a lot of episodes in here that I really, really love. Specifically, the episode where I really like the episode with Lizzie. I really like looking more into the governor's past. I like that. And I also really liked Daryl and just like the relationships that he formed and like seeing more about his past and all that. So going into it, so season 4, day 500 to about a year and a half. So a lot is going on here. We know for a fact that season 4's second episode, Infected, is day 500 on The Walking Dead's timeline, because AMC said so. That's a year and 5-ish months. By this point, there are farm animals, and Judith is steadily getting bigger, but is being carried around constantly. Things slow down again this season in terms of time. Things at the prison soon spiral out of control thanks to a disease by livestock on the grounds. The group are forced to make some tough decisions, including quarantining the infected. 2 of those with the disease, David and Tyrese's girlfriend Karen, are murdered, and the culprit is later revealed to be Carol, which is, like, insane. Like, whoa, where did that come from? So the governor strikes back at the prison and encounters the Chandler family, consisting of Lily, Tara, and Megan. He kidnaps Michonne and Herschel, executing the latter and starting an all-out war at the prison. The governor is eventually defeated and killed by Lily, while the original group of survivors fracture and go their separate ways in the chaos, with Judith being taken in by Carol and Tyrese. One large group begins to form, consisting of Daryl, Beth, Carol, Tyrese, Judith, sisters Lizzie and Mika, Sasha, Bob, and Maggie, while Glenn meets Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene. Eugene's there too, who are on the way to Washington, D.C. to make a cure. Rick, Michonne, and Carl hunt for the remaining members of the group. All roads, though, lead to Terminus, a promising new community. Along the way, Carol is forced to kill Lizzie after she kills her sister, and Beth is also captured by a mysterious set of strangers. Everyone barring Carol's group is eventually captured at Terminus, though Rick ends the season with a rallying cry, banding together the new ensemble, featuring those that Glenn found, the surviving members of the prison, and Tara, our first gay character in the show. I'm so excited. I love Tara. Key points. Many become infected at the prison thanks to a virus. David and Karen are mysteriously killed by Carol. The governor beheads Herschel with literally, I think, Michonne's sword, which was like an insane scene in the final assault on the prison, but he dies, so it's okay. Beth is straight up abducted. The group are all split up after the prison's overrun, and everyone barring Carol, Judith, and Tyrese reunite at Terminus but are held at gunpoint by the leader, Gareth. So the deaths are Herschel, who was beheaded by the governor killed by Lily Chandler, Lily killed off screen by walkers, Mika stabbed by Lizzie, and Lizzie shot by Carol. So, not fun. But we're into season 5. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really like season 5 that much. Not the hugest fan of season 5. But that's just me. I don't know. I don't know. I love, like, slice of life stuff. Like, I do. And so, like, this, like, in theory should be my favorite. But it just wasn't, so. So, season 5, we are still near about a year and 5 months. So, the first half of the season deals with the recovery of Beth, who is found working under the watchful eye of Dawn, who's a crazed police officer turned hospital leader. This all comes after an explosive opening episode, which sees Carol dispatch much of Terminus's members while also rescuing the group. Like, literally, it's just Carol, by the way. Rick meets Father Gabriel, who deserted his congregation in the wake of the Walker outbreak, and while there, the ex-leader of Terminus, Gareth, leads his remaining group to attack, eat, and kill Bob. But Bob was bitten, so they ate infected meat, so it's okay. Later attempts to rescue Beth include Carol being wheeled into the hospital after an accident, though it ends in tragedy after Beth stabs Dawn and Dawn kills Beth. Sasha's brother Tyrese also dies during a trip to rescue hospital worker Noah's family. After Eugene lies about having a cure, the group divert their attention to the walled community of Alexandria after they are invited by one of its residents, Aaron, who's also gay. Things eventually descend into paranoia aimed at the new members of Alexandria, with one Alexandrian, Pete, becoming jealous over Rick's attention towards his wife, and Rick wanting to literally kill Pete because he's abusing his wife and children. Despite initial protests against his hardened attitude, the Alexandrians and their leader Deanna eventually warm towards Rick, who is then forced to kill Pete after he accidentally stabs Deanna's husband Wedge. The season ends with scavengers, the Wolves, on the outskirts of Alexandria, and Morgan returning after brief appearances in the pilot and slightly in season 3. So the key points are that Carol rescues the group in Terminus, Rick reunites with Judith, the group meet Father Gabriel, Bob and Tyrese both die, Carol is also abducted by the same group that took Beth, we discover Beth is now working at a makeshift hospital, Eugene lied about having a cure, he's literally not a scientist, Beth dies, the group befriend Aaron, who's a member of the town of Alexandria, and settle into the community, the Wolves scout out Alexandria, and Morgan just returns. Like, he's just back now. So season 5 deaths are Beth, who's shot by Dawn, who's shot by Daryl, because Daryl's awesome, Bob, killed by walkers after the wolves cut off his leg and ate him, Tyrese, who's bitten by Noah's undead brother, Deanna's son, Aiden, killed by walkers, Noah, who's also killed by walkers, Reg, killed by Pete, and Pete is killed by Rick. Season 6. I loved season 6. I'll tell you about it in a minute, but you'll see why. It's okay. So, the wolves attack Alexandria after an attempt to divert a large group of walkers at a nearby quarry goes very wrong under Rick's leadership. The group are eventually defeated. Oh, briefly, we're at almost 2 years. So a lot is happening, like, very, very quickly. Anyways. So the group are eventually defeated, with only one member named Owen, who is captured. A flashback episode fills in Morgan's adventures since we last saw him. He's now a pacifist, refusing to kill. However, he is experiencing very severe signs of mental illness. Early on in the season, Maggie also reveals she's pregnant with Glenn's child. Yippee! The leader of Alexandria, Deanna, is bitten by a walker and dies, while Alexandria is completely overrun by walkers. The undead are eventually beaten back, but Carl is shot in the eye by Ron, an Alexandrian, trying to escape with his family after a tussle between he and Rick. And the reason they were tussling is because Ron was Pete's son, which is the guy that Rick killed, because Pete killed Reg, and then Ron was mad at his dad because, yeah, anyways. Later in the season, after the wolves have been dispatched, a new group emerges, and they're called the Saviors. They continually take Alexandria's supplies, which forces the town, now led by Rick, now led by Rick, to broker a deal with the Hilltop. Carol and Maggie are kidnapped by the Saviors, but eventually escape, while Alexandria's doctor, Denise, is also killed by prominent member Dwight. Carol ends up leaving Alexandria, but is pursued by the Saviors. She's eventually rescued by Morgan and taken in by a new community. Elsewhere, Negan makes his mark. The leader of the Saviors introduces himself by intercepting the survivors en route to the Hilltop to help a heavily pregnant Maggie who's having some kind of severe problem with her pregnancy. The season ends with Negan killing an unseen member of the group with his barbed wire baseball bat, Lucille, who we later learn is named after his wife, which is so sad, by the way. So the key points are that the wolves invade Alexandria, but are pretty swiftly defeated. The leader of Alexandria, Deanna, dies. Maggie reveals that she's pregnant. Rick becomes the new leader of Alexandria. Carl gets shot in the eye. The Saviors are introduced, robbing much of Alexandria's supplies and capturing various members of the group. Alexandria forms a pact with the Hilltop. The leader of the Saviors, Negan, arrives and kills an unknown group member. So the deaths are Eastman, Morgan's mentor, who's killed by walkers, Deanna, who's bitten by walkers, Jesse, Sam, and Ron, who are all bitten by walkers, Denise, who's killed by Dwight, and an unseen person who's killed by Negan. So season 7. I really like season 7. A lot happens. There's a tiger. Morgan has an issue with some very serious mental health problems. What else happens here? People die. Rick goes through some insane stuff. Yeah. Daryl gets tortured. Like, high-key tortured. So a lot goes on this season. And it's pretty interesting. So the season 6 cliffhanger is revealed. Negan killed Abraham, as well as Glenn, because Daryl got really mad, and then they were like, oh, we have to kill another one, and it's not going to be this one. So they killed Glenn. So then Daryl is brought back in and held captive by the Saviors. The people who took Carol and Morgan in are also revealed to be the Kingdom, who's led by the eccentric Ezekiel, who keeps a tiger for a pet. Also, I forgot to say it again, but we are almost at 2 years. This is taking a while, I know, but we're almost there. Another group is introduced after Tara is swept away on a supply run gone wrong. She ends up at Oceanside, an all-female community. The Saviors continue to make those at Hilltop and Alexandria live in fear, including killing Dr. Olivia, while Daryl eventually escapes from his confinement. At the midsection finale, Negan takes Eugene and also stabs Spencer, Deanna's son, which eventually drives Rick to bring the fight to the Saviors. Rick's group joins forces with the kingdom and also encounters the Scavengers, led by Jadis, a group that has no stake in the oncoming war. Jadis, though, tells Rick to bring her group guns so they can help fight against the Saviors. Negan's right-hand man, Dwight, also wants to take down Negan. The season culminates in a standoff at Alexandria, with Sasha committing suicide inside a coffin with the aim being to kill Negan, though she fails thanks to the Scavengers aligning with the Saviors. The Hilltop and Kingdom eventually ride to Alexandria's rescue while Negan retreats. The key points are that Glenn and Abraham are killed by Negan, Daryl is captured by the Saviors, Tara arrives at Oceanside, the Kingdom is introduced and allies with Alexandria, Rick meets the Scavengers led by Jadis, Sasha kills herself, and the Scavengers betray Alexandria. The deaths are Glenn killed by Negan, Heath, who was an unconfirmed death, but he's gone, Olivia, who was shot by Saviors, Spencer, who was stabbed by Negan, Richard, who was killed by Morgan, Benjamin, who was shot by Saviors, and Sasha, who died by suicide. Season 8. I don't like Season 8. This is a personal opinion. The entire season is pretty much just war and fighting, and there's definitely a lot of really great scenes, but it's just not my personal cup of tea. I know some people love Season 8 and think it's the best season, but it's just not for me. So, we'll talk about it. So Season 8 steps up the conflict between the Saviors and the remaining communities. Sanctuary and the Saviors' home base is attacked and overrun with walkers early on in the season. The group hit back by massacring several members of the kingdom, and Ezekiel's tiger Shiva dies, by the way, trying to protect Ezekiel, which she did. She did protect Ezekiel, but she didn't have to die. Shiva, you could have run away. Oh, I'm gonna cry. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry, Biz. We can do this, okay? In a blast from the past, Morales, from way back in Season 1, returns as a member of the Saviors, though he is swiftly dispatched by Daryl. Eugene also works on the side of the Saviors early in Season 8, though works at a plan to turn against them. Maggie's group encounters Georgie, who makes a quick stop at the hilltop to promise them plans and essential knowledge for a new future. A new member joins the group, the Dr. Sadiq. He is there while Carl gets bitten by a walker during their journey to Alexandria. Carl later kills himself instead of turning, but not before writing letters to his family and friends, including Negan, reminding them of the good in the world. Negan, meanwhile, has internal conflict to deal with. His trusted lieutenant, Simon, massacres every scavenger except Jadis, despite this going against Negan's orders. Back at the now reclaimed sanctuary, and with the blind and sick Gabriel in tow, Negan kills Simon, but Dwight's newfound alliance with Rick is discovered, forcing him to leave for good. This greatly reduces Negan's might, and the final blow comes when the Saviors' attempt to kill Rick blows up in their face because Eugene sabotages their ammo. Rick finally defeats Negan in a one-on-one fight and slices his neck. However, he lets Negan live after remembering Carl's parting words of forgiveness. Also, 1.9 years. So the key points is that the communities attack the sanctuary, making it overrun with walkers. Morales returns and is killed by Daryl. Many citizens of the kingdom and Ezekiel's tiger Shiva are killed by the Saviors. Carl befriends Sadiq, who's a doctor. Eugene helps the Saviors escape the sanctuary. The Hilltop befriends Georgie. Negan retaliates against Alexandria. Carl is bitten in the aftermath and later dies. Negan's new lieutenant, Simon, wipes out the Scavengers, though Jadis lives. Gabriel goes blind in one eye. Negan kills Simon. Dwight escapes from the Saviors. The Saviors' plan to kill the remaining Alexandrians backfires, literally. Rick defeats Negan, though lets him live as a prisoner in Alexandria. And Carl I already said that Carl dies. I'm just really sad about Carl's death. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like, I actually stopped watching for a very long time after Carl's death because I was just so mad. But the deaths are Mara, who's killed by walkers, Morales, who's killed by Daryl, Eric, who's killed by the Saviors, Shiva, who's killed by walkers, Carl, who successfully kills himself after the walker bite, Scavengers, who are killed by Simon, Dr. Harlan Carson, who's killed by the Saviors, and Simon, who's killed by Negan. But moving on into season 9, I didn't really like season 9. To be honest, after like season 7, that was kind of it. I know a lot of people liked the Whisperers thing. I didn't. I really don't like it. I don't think it's very realistic, and I prefer realism when it comes to the zombie apocalypse. And I don't think the Whisperers are that. So, yeah, mostly because, Gabriel got sick from putting on walker guts, but then these guys literally wear masks made of walkers. So, make it make sense. Anyways, so we're jumping to year 3, and we also see into the future to year 10, which is pretty crazy. So to start us off, The Walking Dead Season 9 follows on from the aftermath of Negan's defeat and concerns the insubordination of both the Saviors and the Hilltop's former leader, Gregory, who bowed to Negan's demands in the past. Gregory is swiftly dealt with, executed by new leader and now mother to baby Herschel, Maggie, after a failed assassination attempt, while some of the Saviors clash with Rick's group and a handful are even taken by the Oceanside, which leads to a full-scale revolt. There are more hopeful developments, however, as Carol and Ezekiel's relationship blossoms. So, not all bad, you know? During the riot, Rick's attempts to redirect a herd of oncoming walkers leads to him falling off his horse and being seriously wounded. In the last act of sacrifice, he blows up the literally just finished bridge to stop the walkers encroaching on any communities. He appears to die in the eyes of Daryl, but is miraculously rescued by Anne, aka the former Jadis, who has been in league with a new group, who takes him away on a literal helicopter. Who has so much gas that they could just use a helicopter? I'm sorry, that's just unrealistic. After Rick's apparent death, a 6-year time jump takes place, and in the interim, Maggie leaves Hilltop to join Georgie's group. Rick's daughter, Judith, now forms a key part of the outreach project to help survivors in the wild. One such group, Magna, Yumiko, Luke, and Connie, are eventually taken in, despite Michonne's distrust of outsiders, as shown by her scar. One we come to learn was a result of believing the intentions of a woman and a group of children. Michonne had to massacre the children to escape, as shown in a flashback episode. Finally, the Whisperers enter the picture. Led by Alpha, the group of walker-skinned adversaries kill Jesus. After her daughter Lydia is taken in by the Hilltop, Alpha strikes back at the fair, which was originally designed to reconnect the Kingdom, Hilltop, and Alexandria. Whisperers kill several, including Carol and Ezekiel's adoptive son Henry, Tara, and Enid, and the Kingdom falls. The season ends with a mysterious voice being heard over a radio. The key points: the Saviors struggle to adapt to life post-Negan. Maggie gives birth to her son Herschel. Gregory is executed after his assassination plot is foiled. Rick supposedly dies, but is rescued by Anne, aka Jadis, and taken away on a helicopter. The communities fall out of contact after a 6-year time jump. The Whisperers are introduced and kill Jesus. Alpha's daughter Lydia is taken in by the Hilltop. The Whisperers kill Henry, Tara, and Enid, and a voice is heard on the radio. The deaths are Gregory, who's executed on Maggie's orders, Jesus, who is killed by the Whisperers, Tara, who's killed by the Whisperers and her head is placed on a pike, Enid, who's killed by the Whisperers and her head is placed on a pike, and Henry, who's killed by Whisperers and his head is placed on a pike. Season 10 10A. Now, I know you might be a little surprised to hear 10A, but we also have 10B and I think C. So, yeah. Anyways, these are some pictures. And Daryl gets a dog, who he names Dog. But, yeah. Sorry, I got excited. So season 10A, which is years 10 to 12. The season starts with the Whisperers and the survivors keeping away from each other, something that abruptly changes after a Russian satellite comes crashing down to Earth within the Whisperers' boundaries. Alpha takes issue with the survivors heading into her land to extinguish the flames from the crashed satellite and demands more land from them. The Whisperers also bolster out their ranks with new Lieutenant Gamma. Ezekiel attempts to commit suicide, but is stopped by Michonne. He later reveals to Siddiq that he has thyroid cancer, which he, like, I guess he technically doesn't know, but apparently he has a very, like, long family history of thyroid cancer, and he, like, recognizes some symptoms that he has, so it is confirmed that he does have it. Following a Walker attack on Alexandria, Negan, who's back in prison for committing manslaughter to save Lydia, goes missing. He later bumps into Brandon, who is a former savior who kills a mother and child to impress Negan. In turn, Negan kills Brandon, which goated move, and then is captured by Beta after walking into Whisperer territory. Beta then tests Negan, who manages to pass and seemingly aligns with Alpha. Alpha has been telling other Whisperers that she killed her daughter Lydia, which is a lie. And so when Carol and Daryl head out to destroy Alpha's Walker horde, instead they capture a Whisperer, and then they realize that their prisoner believes that Lydia is dead. Carol vows to reveal the truth to the Whisperers. Meanwhile, the captured Whisperer is killed by Dante, who Siddiq soon realizes is actually a Whisperer spy. Dante strangles Siddiq, but once his true identity is revealed and he's imprisoned, Gabriel kills him in his cell. Around the same time, Michonne, Judith, and Luke travel to Oceanside and meet Virgil, who agrees to show them a valuable weapons cache in order for safe passage back to his family. Carol and Daryl, once again, go looking for Alpha's horde, but this time with Aaron, Magna, Connie, Kelly, and Jerry. Carol spots Alpha, takes chase, luring the entire group into a cave where they are surrounded by the Whisperer's horde. So the key points are that Negan joins the Whisperers, Ezekiel has cancer, Alpha's horde surrounds Carol, Daryl, and others, Michonne, Judith, and others follow Virgil. So the deaths are Siddiq, who is strangled by Dante, who's stabbed by Gabriel, and Brandon, whose head is bashed in with a rock by Negan. So, season 10B, I really liked 10B. I'm gonna be honest. I really did enjoy 10B. I think it was mostly because we saw a lot of Michonne, and we saw a lot of Negan's backstory, which I love Negan as a character. He's one of my favorite characters. So, that's probably why. Yeah. So, the second half of the 10th season features a cave-in near Hilltop that traps Connie and Magna, though Magna later escapes. Over on Whisperer's side of things, Alpha has to deal with the twin loyalties of new recruit Negan and Gamma, who is having her head turned by the humanity of the survivors. The other main through line... I can't talk. I'm sorry, guys. The other main through line for the season is Eugene discovering a new community, thanks to Stephanie, a woman communicating to the nervous scientists over the radio. He, Yumiko, and Ezekiel set off in search of the person behind the mysterious voice, and also come into contact with a quirky individual who goes by the name Princess. The Whisperers and the survivors eventually clash, with Hilltop being razed to the ground. During the heat of battle, Judith kills a Whisperer, which is her first person kill in the series if you're keeping track, and Gamma is killed by Alpha. In a surprise twist, or maybe not, giving us history, Negan kills Alpha and reveals he had been in cahoots with Carol the entire time. But we have more slides. Michonne's time with Virgil goes less well. She's imprisoned by the man on an island, but eventually breaks free, attacks Virgil, and escapes. Via walkie-talkie, she tells Judith that she's heading off to find Rick, and literally just leaves Judith. For now, it's the last that we see of Michonne in the main series. Later on, Virgil meets Connie, who has just escaped from the cave-in during the mid-season premiere. Beta, having taken control of the Whisperers after Alpha's demise, draws a large horde of walkers towards the remaining survivors from Hilltop who have gathered in a hospital. Fortunately, a returning Maggie helps turn the tide, but survivors infiltrate the Whisperers and Daryl kills Beta. The season ends with Eugene's group being surrounded by soldiers, but wait, there's more. There are 6 bonus episodes referred to as 10C, and while they can largely be skipped, they introduce a new villainous group, the Reapers, and dig deeper into Negan's pre-outbreak past with his wife, Lucille. You need to watch 10C. I know it says that it can largely be skipped. Don't listen. Just watch it. Just watch it. So the key points are that a cave-in traps Magna and Connie, though both are eventually rescued. Lucille goes off in search of Rick. Negan kills Alpha. The Whisperers are all defeated. Maggie returns, and Eugene goes off in search of Stephanie and a new community. So the deaths are Gamma, who is disemboweled by Beta, Alpha, who's decapitated by Negan, and Beta, who's stabbed by Daryl and then eaten by walkers. Those are some very brutal deaths. And now, Season 11. So, Season 11, we are at year 15-ish, which is insane. So, Alexandria is running dangerously low on food and supplies, and so Maggie leads a group containing Daryl, Negan, and Gabriel to her old home of Meridian to help gather resources. Eugene, Ezekiel, Yumiko, and Princess are held by the Commonwealth community for questioning. The new Reapers group cause havoc. Maggie allies Cole and Duncan are slain. Daryl finds Dog next to a female Reaper revealed to be his ex Leah, who he got with when he was looking for Rick in the woods. He is introduced to the Reapers leader, Pope, who tests Leah and Daryl by locking them in a hut. After they escape, a clearly uncomfortable Daryl is integrated into the Reapers. Carol and Aaron happen across the scattered remains of the Whisperers, and Aaron tortures their leader, which leads to information about the missing Connie. Over in the Commonwealth, Yumiko catches up with her brother Tomi. Eugene and his crush Stephanie attempt to contact Alexandria, but are stopped and imprisoned. They are eventually released on the orders of the slippery deputy governor, Lance Hornsby. The Reapers are on the tail of Maggie's group near Meridian, but Daryl aids their escape. Leah kills Pope after having enough of his disregard for whether Reapers lived or died. Daryl tries to convince her to leave the Reapers and join Maggie's group, but she refuses. Leah orders the Reapers to attack the group, a decision she'll later regret, and Alden dies during the supply run. A storm hits Alexandria, and walkers enter the slowly flooding house, where some of our survivors, including Judith, Aaron, and Rosita, are holed up. If there's anything this lot do, though, it's get themselves out of sticky situations, so they make it through just in time to welcome Maggie and Daryl and co., who return with the much-needed food. The storyline jumps forward in time 6 months and picks up with most of the main characters having relocated to the Commonwealth, and several of them struggling to stomach the vast class divide within the well-off society. Elsewhere, it depicts Maggie standing off against a Commonwealth army led by Daryl at the gates of a ruined hilltop. After Eugene tells her he loves her, Stephanie disappears. He confronts Lance when he spots her plotting with him and is told that Stephanie isn't actually Stephanie, but a plant called Shira, who was used to get the location of Alexandria out of Eugene. Later, a mysterious woman named Max approaches Eugene and informs him that she was actually the one with him on the radio. Carol calls in a favor with Lance, who bumps Ezekiel's name up in the surgery waiting list. His tumor is successfully removed, which inspires him to open up a special clinic with Tomi. As some of the residents of the Commonwealth go missing, Lance and his troopers take control of Alexandria, Hilltop, and Oceanside. Lance literally flips a coin to decide the fate of Oceanside's residents, And when Leah attacks Maggie, Daryl is forced to kill her. Pamela strikes a deal with Carol to present Lance as a scapegoat for the missing residents, but their plan hits a snag when Max and Eugene spark riots by broadcasting a recording they took of Sebastian championing the Commonwealth's elitist attitude. During the hijacked event, Sebastian attempts to murder Max by pushing her into a walker, but Eugene intervenes, resulting in Sebastian getting bitten and turning. Hellbent on seeing Eugene convicted of murder, Pamela throws Lance in jail, has her troopers kidnap our survivors, and tries to force Yumiko to prosecute him. But the latter resists and tells Pamela she's going to defend him instead. The kidnapped heroes are sent to work in a hard labor camp, dubbed Outpost 22, which is actually Alexandria, which sees Daryl, Carol, Maggie, Rosita, and the others set out on a rescue mission. Carol and Daryl break Lance out of prison to help them find their friends, and when he is no use to them anymore, Carol shoots him in the neck with an arrow. But wait, there's more. After liberating the inmates, the gang takes the train back to the Commonwealth to overthrow Pamela, and Judith gets shot. Judith just gets shot in the process. So, I cried a lot. A horde of smart zombies make their way into the community, which leads Pamela to order her troops to divert the swarm to the lower class areas to give the rich folk more time to escape. Daryl and co. intercept her and force Pamela to open up the gates to the estates so that all living residents can take shelter there. They get as many people to safety as they can before rigging the place with explosives and blowing up the herd. Mercer arrests Pamela for her crimes. Rosita dies, having succumbed to a walker bite on her back, before the gang claim the Commonwealth and restore Alexandria and Hilltop to their former glory. 1 year on, the show reveals Ezekiel, Carol, and Mercer have taken on leadership roles within the former. The series ends with a split sequence that reveals Rick on the run from the Civic Republic military and Michonne in full samurai gear galloping towards the biggest horde of walkers the horror drama has ever seen. So our key points: Eugene, Yumiko, Princess, and Ezekiel enter the Commonwealth. Leah kills the Pope. The Reapers attack Maggie's group. A storm hits Alexandria with Judith, Rosita, and Aaron placed in danger as walkers approach. Alden turns into a walker while out looking for supplies. Daryl kills Leah. Pamela's son Sebastian is killed during a Commonwealth riot. Carol kills Lance. Lydia loses an arm after being bitten by a walker. Negan apologizes to Maggie. Mercer and the gang arrest Pamela. Rosita dies after being bitten by a walker. The group claim the Commonwealth and restore Alexandria and Hilltop. And the longest death list: Roy, who's shot by an arrow by a Reaper. Cole, whose throat is slit by Jensen. Frost, who is tortured by the Pope. Jensen, who's stabbed by Gabriel. Duncan, who's impaled by the Reapers. Alden, whose throat is slit by a Reaper. Pope, who's stabbed by Leah. Carver, who's stabbed by Maggie. Leah shot in the head by Daryl. Ian shot in the head by Toby Carlson. Toby Carlson shot off a roof and into a horde of walkers by Aaron. Sebastian, who's pushed into a walker by Eugene and bitten. Lance, who's shot with an arrow by Carol. Jules, who's eaten by walkers. Luke, bitten by a walker and bleeds out after a makeshift amputation. Rosita, who's bitten by a walker and slowly succumbs to the infection. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And maybe I'll see you for another one. Bye, guys.